Holocaust fatigue is when we are jaded, when we are, well, I don't want to hear about the Holocaust again. Okay, there are two ways of the way I relate to this. I think that in Jewish education, and this goes back to my Jewish education, and I guess it does still go on in some schools to some extent, that there are kids, students, who can only relate somehow, and this is not necessarily in the Orthodox community, I'm just saying it's across the board, I have found when I was growing up, that kids can relate to their Jewish identity very significantly through the negativity of the Jewish experience, of Jewish history, that we are a persecuted people. And that this is, I remember growing up, this was something that was really emphasized in my classroom, that we are being persecuted, we've been persecuted. And it gets to a point that that is the only way we can identify, and I think that turns people off to Judaism. Because I think obviously we are persecuted, and there are things in history which we need to communicate to the students, but there are also extremely positive forces and things that have shaped the Jewish people, and that needs to be emphasized as well. But I can only tell you from my own experience, there was a lot of negativity, and that I think you get that from the Holocaust too. If people constantly can only identify with their Judaism through persecution and say, well, we're persecuted, that's something that is tiring and it's jaded. Now the other fatigue is what sometimes I experience in Berlin when I do my other project, when students very openly say to me that they're tired of hearing about the Holocaust because the German government has mandated that all teachers do a certain amount of units on the Holocaust. Just like in American public schools, teachers have to teach about the Holocaust. And I've heard this from a number of students, not the majority of students, but some students. Why do we have to learn about the Holocaust? We keep hearing every year. What does this have to do with us? So that's another form of Holocaust fatigue, and it's equally dangerous, because if kids in Germany or anywhere else who are not Jewish say, we're tired of hearing about how the Jews have been persecuted, that builds up a certain amount of resentment, and resentment may lead to anti-Semitism again. I think that some people who are not black have experienced a similar thing when they hear so much about the persecution of blacks and slavery and bigotry and discrimination and Black History Month. And I know that there are some students who have expressed very out with me, why do all the blacks have to get all the attention now? And that equally breeds, again, what we're trying to achieve, which is tolerance and understanding about a different people and everything. And that's fatigue also that sets in about black history. Same thing, some very similar thing. I don't think it's too much. I think it's just got to be done in the proper way. I think it's got to be done in a very gentle way, and it's got to be done in a proper perspective, and the right people have to do it. And it can be taught in an effective way, and in a way that kids don't say, well, we're going to hear about the Holocaust again. And there's certain also myths are perpetuated in terms of some, and I think that, well, it gets into a whole political issue about Israel, the founding of Israel. And people always link Israel with the Holocaust. And yes, there's a linkage, but what students don't understand, they really are not that knowledgeable about the history of Israel, is that the whole Zionist movement begins way before the Holocaust. And yet if you ask I'm sure you ask many students in this school, they'll say, no, it began with the Holocaust. Israel was a creation of the Holocaust. And so, again, is this kind of myths and fatigue that's set in. Teachers are not, somehow they're not getting the message, of course, and putting things in perspective. That they're going to say, oh, we're going to hear about the Shoah again. We're going to hear about the Holocaust again. And yet, those same students really don't know too much about the Holocaust. It's just, it's mentioned. It's in the press. It's I think it was Finkelstein who named his book The Holocaust Industry. And well, I mean, that's a very controversial issue, but I mean, it is in a sense an industry that over the last 20, 30 years, you know, ever since the Eichmann trial, I think the Eichmann trial really started this whole more awareness, greater scholarship and awareness, popular awareness of the Holocaust. People hear about the Holocaust, but do they really know about the Holocaust? That's a certain kind of fatigue too. That they hear about it, but they don't really know that much about it.